Well, we're in the Vin Scully press box in Los Angeles in the Vin Scully booth talking with none other than the Hall of Famer Vin Scully.
What an
And
upset.
another year, but it's always great to see you.
Great to see you, John. The door is always open for you. You know that.
I was reading over some things about your career, and one that really struck me was a night you had a few years back with the legendary, now the late John Wooden. Tell us about that night you were on stage with 7,000 or 8,000 people in the audience listening to those stories.
It was a memorable night, and the idea originally was T.J. Simers, who writes a column here for the Los Angeles Times, and he thought it might be a pretty good idea to bring us both together. Now, I had not been with John or seen him in quite a while. He no longer drove his car, and he was in a wheelchair. So I met him that night at the Nokia Theater downtown, packed house. 8,000 was probably right. And they wheeled John out, and I walked quietly behind him. We sat opposite each other in nice, comfortable chairs. And TJ was the moderator, instigator, agitator, whatever. He fulfills a lot of definitions. And he had us both talking over things that have happened in our career. And one of the things that John did is something that he did with every team before every season. I was not aware of this. They brought out a youngster, about 10 years old, and John showed him how to put on his sock. Now, you might say, what in the world? But as John Wooden, so thorough, so thoughtful, so perceptive, he knew that if you put your sock on incorrectly, and it's either curled up or whatever inside your sneaker, in a very short time running up and down the court, you're going to develop a blister. So a lot of high school hotshots who came to UCLA were shocked that the very first thing John Wooden would do is say, okay, take off your shoes. Now I'm going to show you how to put on your sock. It was so charming, so beautiful. Typical a great-grandfather at 97 talking to this little boy about such an elementary thing, putting on a sock. It was just touching. And he was priceless. His mind as quick as ever. TJ would try to tease him, and he always came back with a good shot at TJ every single time. So for me, sitting there really glowing, watching and listening and looking at him, that's what I will take away from that for the rest of my days.
Well, something I find interesting, and having watched him from the time I was a kid with those great UCLA teams, when the pressure was greater, he was so calm, and he was able to get his teams through that. You've had to handle pressure situations like that in big World Series games, big moments. The Kirk Gibson home run comes to mind, where Jack Buck on radio said he couldn't believe what he just saw. I'm sure you couldn't either, but you stayed calm through the moment and described the action as it happened.
The first World Series game I ever did was 1953. I had probably done maybe 4 telecasts the entire year. And because of various things that went on with Red Barber and Gillette and Connie Desmond, the number 2 announcer, they wound up with me. And the morning of the first game, I had breakfast, my mother, father, and sister, typical big breakfast, orange juice, bacon and eggs, toast and coffee and all that. And then I went upstairs and threw everything up. That's the way I controlled that moment. However, when I got to the ballpark, Yankee Stadium was the first game, 1953. When I got there, the smells, the sounds, everything was what I had been going through for the last 4 years, and so that calmed me down a bit. When I announced in 1955, apparently very calmly to the listener and the viewer, the Brooklyn Dodgers are the champions of the world, people all winter long said, how could you have been so calm? How could you have possibly kept your senses? I said, to be honest, I could not have said another word without breaking down because it was so emotional. However, that's a long time ago. And by the time we got to Kirk Gibson and his famous home run, the only thing in my mind with Kirk was, I hope he doesn't strike out. Because he was on the national stage, he had a marvelous year to lead the Dodgers into the World Series. He couldn't run at all. Both legs were banged up. And that was probably, by the way, John, my greatest contribution. In the 9th inning, we're on the air, and I asked the producer, I said, do me a favor, when we come back out of commercial, give me a shot of the stadium and then listen to me and just do what I ask. He said, fine. So when we came out of commercial, there was the blimp showing the shot of Dodger Stadium. And I said, if you were here with us tonight, the first thing you do is look in the Dodger dugout. Wham! They looked in the dugout. And they panned the dugout from one end to the other. And I said, obviously, Kirk Gibson is not there, and he will not appear in tonight's game. Little did I know, in the clubhouse, Gibby was sitting on a training table. He had a huge bag of ice on each leg. Somehow, this pan the stadium, pan the dugout, my remark, all of a sudden he hollered fertilizer or something like that, threw off the bags of ice, told the bat boy, go down and tell Tommy I'll be there. So it kept building. I didn't realize that. And then all of a sudden, Mike Davis got a walk, and I look over, and here's Kirk using his bat as a cane. And I said, well, look who's here. Well, the place went bananas. Now he's up there, and if you remember, he's fouling up little dribblers up along first base. And all the time in my mind, never thinking of home run, nothing. I'm just thinking, please, Lloyd, don't let him strike out. Let him hit the ball somewhere. Well, when he hit it, if there's one thing I always do is try, A, to be accurate, and B, to be quick. So when I called home run, then I had a chance to just shut up. And while the place went crazy, I was able to stay reasonably calm. And then God was good. I just suddenly had a thought that in the year of the implausible, the impossible happened. I had never thought of that. It just came to me. There are many times nothing comes to me, and I drive home thinking, why couldn't I have said, I wish I had thought of, like everybody else in the business. So, yeah, I was calm, but I was calm with 50,000 years behind me of doing it, I guess, plus the idea that I used the crowd as the wedge before coming back on. When Henry Aaron hit his classic home run in Atlanta, I actually timed it. From the moment I said gone, I did not speak for 1 minute and 20 seconds, which is a long time on radio. Again, because I want the crowd to hear the noise more than anything, the cheers. I can't say anything better than 50,000 people hollering, really. But during that time, I'm able to stay relatively calm and then come back sometimes with a cogent remark. And so that's where the calmness comes from, the years.
As I recall, though, during your description of the moment, after that long pause on radio, you gave us quite a history lesson and something to think about the times our country was in relation to the race relations.
Again, it was just like the remark about Gibson and about the year. I don't have any idea where that came from. George Plimpton, the writer, covered that game, and he actually wrote a book based on the home run. And he went to everybody imaginable and asked them about what they felt, what they said, whatever. And he said to me, did you have something prepared? And I said, no, George, I didn't. And he said, well, Milo Hamilton did. I said, okay, but I said, I love the moment. I never know what's going to come out, sometimes nothing. But whatever comes out, stirred by the emotion of the moment, it'll be me. And I didn't really have any thought. And when I read what I had said, because it's been printed off, I was flabbergasted that all that came out of me, this kid from the streets of New York. But it hit me. A black man in the deep South being absolutely mobbed and saluted for breaking the record of a white icon. And I said how important that is, not for Henry, the family, Atlanta, the state, but the country and the world itself. It was a marvelous moment. Probably, with all said and done, that would be my happiest moment in baseball because first of all, I admired Henry. He was a lovely guy, still is. But, as a player, soft-spoken and very cooperative and everything else. And talk about living under pressure. He did, obviously, a lot better from what I've read because I wasn't with Roger Maris. Roger went through the torments of the big city in New York. Henry kind of glided through outwardly anyway. So I don't know where that happens, but always the crowd figures into it. Something happens, I let the crowd roar, I don't even have time, I don't think, to think about what I'm going to say. And when the crowd dies down, something comes out. Sometimes good, sometimes nothing, at all.
Is that the best part of the job, though, Vin? You come out to the ballpark, even after all these years, from Campanella to Scioscia and beyond, and Walt Alston and the great Dodger managers over the years, you're going to see something new every night.
Probably so. The biggest thing, I guess, and I'm sure you enjoy the same thing, we have all kinds of high-tech equipment to do games, but it's a people business. So you're not out here talking to the camera, you're talking to the cameraman. You're out here talking to all the people involved, either with the telecast, radio, or on the ball club. And that's really the big joy, the privilege of being allowed to come out here and do the game. And my thermometer, which regulates and tells me where I am as far as enthusiasm, because you know as well as I do, you can't manufacture enthusiasm. It would be dishonest if you could do it, but it would be spotted immediately by the listener. Mine, goosebumps. Ever since I've been a little kid, the roar of the crowd or a great play, I get goosebumps. And I've gotten them all my life. Last year we had a play here where a kid second baseman on a double play threw the ball to the shortstop behind his back. You would swear in my body physiology that it was the first game I'd ever seen. I mean, I was covered with goosebumps thinking how exciting that was. I still get them. So I get them this year. That'll tell me that I'm still being honest with myself and still enjoying it.
That's why
I'm enjoying being with you.
That's why we love to listen to you, Vin.
Oh,
Thanks so
bless
much.
your heart. John, love to see you. I'm delighted. Sorry I can't get to St. Louis anymore, unless the postseason, I hope.
You're always welcome in our small booth.
Thank you very much. Love it. The high-tech booth of the league.
Vin Scully, the great Hall of Fame announcer, now retired and enjoying his time in Los Angeles.